Davos, shall we, as the World Economic Forum is underway and fully in gear. Joining us to give us a bit of more analysis on what's playing out on the international stage is Ejike Okpa, who is a global affairs analyst, joining us from Dallas, Texas. Mr. Okpa, very good to have you on the news this afternoon. Let's just start. You know, this year's forum is obviously overshadowed by Donald Trump's threats to take Greenland. But what does the 2026 theme reveal about the immediate priorities of global leaders?
I think it's not a threat. You know, what Trump is just expressed his desire. And if that becomes reality, you know, it's something we have to wait and see. As to the global, landscape, it's always been that, people get together in Davos and express their desire for their country or what they would like to see the global relationship be like. At the end of the day, individual nations have to still push for what is good for them. All this idea of a global economy and global institutions to dictate to countries is not going to work because most countries, by their own nature, have their specific needs and their specific structure of how they want to be governed or how they want to, relate to their own local citizens. But it's good that you build a relationship because, again, no country can do without the other, but comes to where how relevant is a partnership? And is it a partnership that is made you to subdue to be subdued? To submit to be subdued, or is it a partnership that works to enhance your own ability to build your own local capacity?
Right. Let's look at the theme in its entirety. It's a theme that says a spirit of dialogue, and we've seen President Trump's letter to Denmark, right? And you've seen it, the entire world have seen it. Do you think that the forum there in Davos would set a stage for what we perceive to might be a dialogue? Can he go into dialogue and come to a resolution regarding Greenland?
Yes, there's always opportunity for dialogue, conversation. I mean, since we found each other, since Adam and Eve found each other in the Garden of Eden, it was a dialogue. What did that dialogue lead to is what we see today. So it was always, people coming together. You're not going to have a dialogue by yourself. You're going to have it with somebody. So that dialogue, if Davos think there's something they can say to pacify, the fear factor and deal with what the real issue is. The real issue is the hunger, starvation and poor health issues that most people in the world face. It has nothing to do with Trump interest or announcement for Greenland. At the end of the day, you have to go home and deal with, do you have water? Do you have electricity? Is your street relatively clean? Is your government doing their best to satisfy the need or at least meet the minimum need of the people that they have responsibility over? The gathering has been the gathering, since 1940-something when we got the UN, United Nations thing set up. Where is the world today in it? So responsibilities still have to go back to the individual countries. We're going to make the efforts to say, hey, this is what we like to see happen. And if what we like to see happen is in conflict with somebody else, you look for another person to create partnership. It's not a one size fits all.
Right. I'm being informed that we have Mr. Collins Nweke, who joins us live from Brussels, Belgium. Mr. Nweke, good to have you join me on the news. Let's look at Nigeria now and the message that it sends at the forum there in Davos as we inaugurate its first ever sovereign pavilion in Davos. And how does that sit within the broader picture of its place as Africa's biggest economy?
Thank you, Judith, for having me. Nigeria inaugurating a first ever sovereign pavilion titled Nigeria House. Is Nigeria actually saying we are done being spoken about, we are here to speak for ourselves with an investment narrative we control? Is also a reputational upgrade. A pavilion, let's remind ourselves, is a signal of seriousness, that Nigeria is showing up not just for applause lines, but for, to negotiate partnerships, showcase reforms, and place bankable projects on the table. And in the context of Nigeria's scale as Africa's largest economy, it is consistent. You can't claim continental leadership by words of mouth and remain invisible in the rooms where capital, policy, and supply chains are being reset. So, in the final analysis, as far as I'm concerned, this is Nigeria moving from presence to positioning, but it is not just by politics of announcement. They've got to be followed through, and that is usually where the problem is.
And so I do have to ask them, what if there's a follow through, and not just it being about PR or optics, what then should be the concrete outcome for Nigeria? What should we expect from this level of engagement, the WEF, and how should such an agenda be beneficial for critical growth sectors in the economy and the entirety as leaders in Africa?
Very important question. For me, Nigeria should not go to Davos chasing vibes. It should chase deliverables. And in my books, there are about 4 things that I can actually think about as critical deliverables. Number 1, investment leads that become term sheets within 60 to 120 days, not more. 2, strategic MOUs in priority sectors that have clear pipelines. It's not just about, signing an MOU with any country that is, ready and willing to sign MOU. There has to be, they've got to fall into the priority sectors. And then number 3, risk-sharing deals with direct foreign investors and export credit agencies. Number 4, market access and supply chain partnerships, for non-oil export. These, in my view, are sectors where Davos engagement can actually convert energy transition, gas to pipe, gas to power plus renewables, agribusiness value chains, digital infrastructure, AI skills, critical mineral, processing, logistics, port, and health manufacturing. For me, the key is discipline. Nigeria should live with a short list of bankable projects plus policy assurances plus credit counterparts. That is how Davos stops being a talk shop and becomes real deal room.
All right. Let me also come to you, Let me also come to you, sir, and ask you, Mr. Ejike Okpa, and ask whether or not you also agree with him in terms of tangible economic partnership and investments. How can Nigeria convert their visibility when it comes to bilateral and multilateral positions and investments?
Look, there's not a whole lot of debate here to have. You have to ask the Nigerians. You have to ask 99% Nigerians, do a survey, look at it and say, hey, how do you feel about housing issues? How do you feel about employment? How do you feel about going to a bank and borrowing money? How do you feel about public safety? These things are local. Every politics is local. And until you get that political feeling, that you are delivering something to your own constituents, all the world stage showing up, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, last year there was big deals that was announced in Nigeria. If you add all of those so-called big deals, amounted to about $3 billion. Just for the sake of numbers, you take $3 billion divided by 230 million Nigerians, it's about $13. So the numbers are there, but the thing until the political people, become sensible and become a little more intentional about what they do for Nigeria. This expression that Nigeria is the biggest economy in Africa is exaggerated. There's not a whole lot of punch in it, because if you look at the federal government budget, it's about $35 billion. So if your GDP is almost 700 billion and your annual spending is 35 billion, that means you're not even capturing 5% of your GDP, because your total asset base has nothing to do with your spending. So Nigerians have to rethink this idea of being the largest economy. just you are a population of 230 million people doesn't really mean you're a vibrant economy. It comes to the spending. So if, South African national budget is bigger than that of Nigeria, Egypt's budget is bigger than that of Nigeria. It's the spending that matters, not, the gross domestic product.
All right.
Except you now begin to capture some revenue from that domestic product in order for the government to have access to revenue they need to perform what they need. Otherwise, it's just, beer parlor chant.
Right.
So again, my thing is localize the benefits to the people and not just go on war stage, and beat your chest about certain things.
Okay, I mean, there's also a lot that needs to be discussed when it comes to concerns for investors. There's issue of food security, energy security, and so much more. I wish there's enough time for us to get into all of that, but it will definitely be for another time. I must say thank you to you, Mr. Ejike Okpa, who's a global affairs analyst, joining us from Dallas, Texas, as well as Mr. Collins Nweke from Brussels, Belgium. Once again, gentlemen, thank you.